Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this final session of the Ontario Invasive Species Forum. Thank you all for joining us, not only this afternoon, but all week. I hope you enjoyed some of the amazing presenters that we've had throughout the week and learned something new. Although you may have seen, heard, or received emails from me throughout the week this week, before I start my presentation, I'm going to take just a minute to introduce myself. My name is Mackenzie DeGaspero, and I am a Program Development Coordinator at the Invasive Species Center. I joined the center in 2018, bringing with me a background in evolutionary ecology, experience working with pathogenic bacteria, forest pests, and integrated pest management. When I started here, I took on much of the forest insect and pathogen work at the ISC, with a lot of my focus being on oak wilt outreach and education. But today, to close off the forum, I'm going to be talking about moving into our next 10 years and the importance of collaboration. I wanted to take this opportunity in this closing session to really dig into this ongoing theme of collaboration that we've seen throughout the forum and take a step back to look at how far we've come in the past 10 years and take a glance forward at potentially our next 10 years. So just a bit of an overview and reminder. This is, I think, why a lot of us do this invasive species work. There are three main umbrellas that we look at as far as impacts. First of all, invasive species, as we know, are one of the greatest threats to biodiversity, not just in the province of Ontario, but on a global scale. Economically speaking, invasive species cost the average municipality over $200,000 a year, and it's estimated that across the province as a whole, over $50 million is spent on invasive species management, which is quite a staggering number to think about. And finally, we have social impacts. And I know in my work specifically over the last year or so, in my presentations that I give, whether to the public or industry professionals or other people that do education and outreach on invasive species, I really try to focus a lot in on how important the social impacts are to talk about, especially when you're talking to more general public about invasive species impacts, because, you know, some of the people that you come across, they may not be as interested in the environmental side or the economic side, but it's really just a part of human nature for us to be concerned about what's going on in our backyards. You know, a lot of the social items that invasive species impact they can be, you know, landmarks in neighborhoods and kind of those important things that people, you know, reasons why people live where they live or things that they love about their province or community. And that's it. Like I said, it's just human nature to care about those things. So I think it's a really great point to be able to connect with all kinds of different people that may not have the same interest as we do in the environmental or economic side. So that's all I really wanted to say about that. Next, I'm just going to jump into why we care about invasive species so much in Ontario. Ontario actually has more invasive species than any other province or territory in Canada. There's 441 invasive plants that can be found in southern Ontario alone, 39 known or potential invasive forest insects, 10 invasive tree diseases, and 180 non-native and invasive species in the Great Lakes. And this includes 26 known non-native freshwater fish, which is twice as many as each of the Maritimes, Quebec, Alberta, and Manitoba. So why is this? Why do we have so many invasive species in the province? There are several factors that are involved in this. And when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about here this morning, I think that we can draw a lot of parallels looking at what happened in the last year with COVID-19 in the province. And I think that a lot of the same factors in kind of those big urban areas that caused such issues with COVID-19, there's parallels there with invasive species as well. We have a lot of large urbanized areas in Southern Ontario. And that attracts a lot of travel, a lot of residents, a lot of visitors, and also a lot of trade. Looking at trade specifically, 64 of overseas containers that arrive in Canada are opened in the Ontario portion of the Great Lakes Basin. So trade is a pretty big one for the province of Ontario, as well as proximity to the Great Lakes. I think those two go hand in hand. We also have a very diverse geography across the province. Speaking about aquatics specifically here, we've got tons of lakes and rivers that are interconnected, and that can be a pretty easy avenue of spread for aquatic invasive species. And of course, finally, climate change. I think we all know that climate change impacts all aspects of our work, and unfortunately, it has been increasing both native and non-native ranges, which can influence establishment in these northern areas of Ontario and Canada as a whole. So with Ontario being such a high risk for invasive species introduction and spread, in 2011 and 2012, the Ontario government addressed this need for an Ontario perspective in terms of invasive species with the development of the Ontario Invasive Species Strategic Plan and the incorporation of the Invasive Species Centre. So the objectives of the Ontario Invasive Species Strategic Plan were to prevent new invaders from arriving and surviving in Ontario, to slow the spread of existing invasive species, and to reduce the harmful impacts of those species. The development of this strategic plan noted the importance of a coordinated approach to invasive species management. And as we've heard over the course of this week from many speakers, invasive species are a really complex issue, especially in Ontario, and they can't be undertaken by a single organization. So the Ontario Invasive Species Strategy began to act as a starting point for discussion with many partner organizations on how we can work together to implement the key actions and priorities that the strategy addressed. Partners that were involved in this, in both the development of the strategy and the implementation of these products, crossed all levels of government and included many non-governmental organizations and other partner networks. So at the federal level, we have quite a few partners, including the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Parks Canada, Natural Resources Canada, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and Canadian Border Services. At the provincial level, we have, of course, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Ministry of Agriculture, Foods and Rural Affairs, who we heard from earlier this week, the Ministry of Environment, and the Ministry of Transportation. Other key partners, if I went through them all, I'd have you here for the rest of the afternoon, but a couple of key ones that we heard from this week are the Invading Species Awareness Program that's run through the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, or if you heard Brooke Schreier's talk earlier this week, he gave a great overview of their program, and also the Ontario Invasive Plant Council, who Belinda did a program overview earlier this week as well. So much like this forum, collaboration and coordination were underlying themes to the strategic plan. And to address this theme, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the Canadian Forest Service, and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry agreed to coordinate their invasive species efforts in 2011 through the incorporation of the Invasive Species Centre. So the center acts as a hub that connects agencies across all levels of government, as well as the many other partners that are doing really great work in the province. We work to create and disseminate resources and facilitate collaboration and decision-making on invasive species issues. So the center is located in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. And it acts as a regional center that really keys in on Ontario and the Great Lakes region, but also connects with adjacent provinces and neighboring states. And as we all know, invasive species don't stop at those political boundaries. So these connections with other states and provinces are a really, really critical piece to a successful invasive species management strategy. And I think we've really seen that come into action over the past decade. Over the course of this week, we saw many great examples of collaborative action through projects and programs, including but not limited to the Asian longhorn beetle response and eradication in the GTA, which not only created super beneficial relationships for the project itself, but those relationships have been ongoing since the project was completed. All of the Phragmites work that's ongoing across the province is incredibly collaborative. Water soldier programs with Parks Canada, OFAH, and others, the Asian Carps program and other aquatic invasive species work, and of course the new Green Shovels Collaborative that's being facilitated by the ISC with quite a few of the other great partners that you heard from this week. So before I pass it over to Sarah Rang, our Executive Director at the ISC, to provide her closing remarks, I really just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for their participation this week. Whether you were a speaker or an attendee, these types of events that bring all of the stakeholders in invasive species management together and allow us the opportunity to learn and share our work and ask questions and start really great discussions. This is a really important piece of that collaborative action that both the Invasive Species Centre and the Ontario Invasive Species Strategy strive towards. So as many of us are leading into the end of a challenging and unique fiscal year, I think that this forum was a great way to wrap up and really end our years on a high note and discuss some of the incredible work that's happening in the provinces or in the province. And some of the challenges that were overcome as well. And I think if we learned nothing else over this week, all of the people that are working on programs and projects across the province are quite resilient, and that's showing in our work as well with all of the challenges that we faced this year and had to overcome. So with that, I'm going to say thank you once again and pass it over to Sarah to give her remarks.
Thanks so much, Mackenzie, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining with us this afternoon in the closing session. It's my great honor to say thank you to all the folks who made this forum a success over the last 4 days, and that really is our over 50 speakers, many of whom are on the line now. So big shout out and thank you to all the speakers who gave generously of their time and their knowledge. Also wanted to thank Mackenzie and the ISC team who put together 4 days of programming, 50 speakers, and managed to make it all work virtually. So big thank you to Mackenzie and the ISC team as well. We've had amazing participation at the forum. We've had over 250 people register for the Invasive Species Forum over the past 4 days. And I hope that you've had the opportunity to learn a few new tools or techniques, or a bit of an update on a project that you had heard going for a bit as well. Also really want to thank the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for their support for this forum and making it possible. And thank Minister Yakubuski very much for his comments in the opening session on Monday. We've learned a lot over the past 4 days, and Mackenzie's talked a little bit about some of the themes that we've heard. The collaboration and partnership, I think, came out in many of the sessions that I listened into. I think we also heard a lot about some of the new and emerging tools that we're beginning to use in invasive species management. Some are digital, some have been around for a little while, but we are continuing to improve them in terms of new biocontrol agents and other mechanisms of management of invasive species. Heard about the importance of monitoring so that we have a feedback mechanism to help guide our work in terms of making continuous improvements and adapting to new situations. We've heard a lot about the important role of citizens and community in terms of helping us have eyes on the ground for invasive species management and detection. Heard a lot also about some of the new threats that are coming to Ontario, both in our forests and our lands and our waters, in terms of some of the new and emerging threats and how we can work together to try to prevent those from coming to Ontario. We've also heard a lot about the importance of communication and outreach and education and training on invasive species. And a really big thank you to many of our Indigenous leaders who took time to share their knowledge with us today as well, and remind us of the, one of the important lessons in terms of slow down and build relationships. So thank you to all of our Indigenous elders and leaders there as well. If you've missed any of the sessions, they have been recorded and we will be making them available to you. Just stay tuned on our ISC website in order to access any of the sessions that you might not have been able to attend. And also interested, as Mackenzie said, in terms of your feedback on the session, that'll help us in terms of our planning for future sessions as well. So thank you for that as well. We're going to be using the knowledge that we've gained from you and the participants and the speakers in terms of trying to help guide our activities at the Invasive Species Center. And I really welcome your thoughts and any advice you might have for us as the Invasive Species Center in terms of how we can help to serve you and your work on invasive species. If you have ideas about projects or programs or research that you're interested in, please don't hesitate to approach myself or any member of the ISC team. We're always looking for new partnerships and new areas where ISC can help support work on invasive species. So we'll continue our work in the three baskets in terms of economics, helping build up the business case for investment in invasive species, catalyzing action in terms of through community and citizen science, and some of our new work on green shovels with many of the partners that are here today, and really continue in terms of sharing knowledge through communication, outreach, training, and offering webinars. We're also delighted that this is our 10-year anniversary at ISC, and so we are holding a series of special events to help support different community members in their work on invasive species. So you'll see we've been offering a small microgrant program for community and education microgrants, and we'll also be doing a boot brush giveaway as well to help support local people doing wonderful work on invasives. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any thoughts or suggestions on the forum itself, or more broadly in terms of how ISC can help you in your work on invasive species management. So I'm going to close there and allow yourselves, just to say thank you for participating, and thank you so much for your ongoing support of the Invasive Species Forum. It's really greatly appreciated. And pleased to answer any questions if you have any, but also recognize that, it's been a long 4 days, and I hope you've had the opportunity to learn and reconnect with some of the folks that you may have seen before. So many thanks for all your help, and I'm pleased to answer any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I think we can close the forum.
Sounds great. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Oh, I think I have a question coming in, Sarah, before we go. Sorry. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm having some issues with this question box.
No problem. Don't worry, Mackenzie. Yeah.
So this question is asking about an absence of a leading worldwide invasive species not covered by any speakers. Oh, this Phyllis cactus. I will answer this one in the question box.
Okay, no problem. If there's no another, I would suggest that we close the forum and allow people the opportunity to return to their busy work and lives. I know it's a very busy time for many folks right now. So many thanks for participating, and thanks so much, and we'll officially close the forum now. Thank you all. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.